Hi there and welcome to Fivo BI Services. Now, this analysis is specifically for people interested in data analytics, specifically how to use Power BI to achieve efficient data analysis and data visualization. Also, it's for people that just want to know about MTN's numbers, their earnings release and everything about it. But before we go into the details, I would like to indicate that you're here just to understand how to utilize the dashboard, right? You can use the timestamp to skip to the ending of the video, and there I broke down how to understand every chart, every filter, and everything about the dashboard. But if that's not your interest, if you're interested in learning everything about the analysis, just stick with us, and I'll share everything from the data sourcing to the data cleaning to the analysis, down to how we built up all the dashboards. That's the two dashboards and every chart inside the dashboards. So before we go into how the analysis came about, the whole process of the analysis, you have to step back a bit to understand what really triggered the analysis. And to be honest, it was user complaints, right? Customer complaints that I personally came across on X, formerly Twitter. I'm just going to read them from my laptop. The first person said that MTN is saying that I'm out of data in 6 days. I'm going to summarize it. They're out of data in 6 days, that their phone shows they only use one app X and it's 8 gig in 6 days. The rest of the 43% just disappeared. The second person said, how did we go from a 50% SSC approved hike to a 200% increase on some plans? Nigerians are being overcharged. The third person said, if data is expensive, let it at least be quality. This was the shortest and the most impactful. So all these three complaints, they hit different dynamics. The first person saying that their data disappeared, right? The second person saying that they are insinuating that MTN increased their prices of their data illegally. The third person is insinuating that just basically a very hard complaint, simple hard complaint that based on MTN increased their plans close to early 2025, February 2025, they're saying that as they've increased it, let it at least be quality. That is building upon all the complaints about data disappearing or the network being bad, network congestion and the likes. So all these complaints and many more like this, there are many more I saw here. These are just the three I want to highlight. They triggered our analysis. It's important to note that these were not random complaints. They were trending complaints. The people were tagging MTN, tagging the NCC, posting receipts, comparing the data prices or data plans against their phones' data usage, and many things like that. And essentially, nothing was adding up for them. So we at Fivo BI Services took a different approach. We didn't ask, is MTN cheating people? That's not what we asked. What we really looked into is that, now, if you run the unit economics of data pricing, are people, as MTN's customers, are they right to feel overcharged? And the answer is yes, but not for the reasons that are going around. Not for, ghost data disappearing, or MTN having illegal dealings. A very quick disclaimer is that we are not the NCC. We don't have any legal bounding to verify, what MTN is truly doing behind the scenes. But what we can do is work with the numbers that they published by themselves. Now, while that was going on in the consumer side of things, there was an interesting movement in the company or corporate side of things that people didn't fully clock. In 2024, MTN posted a huge loss of over 400 billion naira. Now, shockingly so, that was a 192% increase from their 2023 loss also, which was around 130 billion naira. That's not the main factor I wanted to look into. The main factor is that all that loss was driven by Forex. Why do I say so? Now, 2024 had naira's worst days compared to dollar in recent times. It started fine when naira was around 900 naira to $1, but it had random spikes where it got up to 15, 14. But Naira, basically, at the end of 2024, Naira against the dollar ended up being 1,535. Now, how does that affect MTN? MTN has things like tower lease agreements, equipment costs, and other foreign currency obligations that were priced in dollar but have to be paid for in naira. So you can imagine how the whole mathematics messed them up. Ultimately, this analysis has two distinct purposes: one for the consumer lens and one for the corporate lens. For the consumer lens, we're basically trying to answer a few questions, right? We're trying to help out the consumers with more insights as to MTN's affordability claim, right? Whether their plans are truly affordable and how their data plans truly affect the average consumer, taking into consideration their usage habits. Now, for the corporate lens, we're trying to essentially look into, because MTN had a loss in 2024, a very huge loss, but in 2025 they had a recovery. So we're trying to look into if that financial recovery was driven truly by their operational efficiency or simply by pushing the burden onto the consumers in terms of increased prices. So yeah, let's jump in.
So let's get into it straight up. I would like to start by, the data, basically data extraction. How did we get the data that we use for the project? And simply, I just want to go over it first. There are different tables in the data. The first table is revenue and expenses. Don't forget about the 9M. The project was started when the fiscal year wasn't really published. The fiscal year of 2025 wasn't really published completely. So we had to actually wait for it to be completed published before we concluded the analysis. So we actually used all of 2025's data, but the 9M here is just there because of the project started. And if we change it here, it will affect the Power BI transformation. So yeah, but all the data is up to date for 2025. So the revenue and expenses, all the revenue for MTN according to their earnings release, service revenue, voice revenue, data revenue, fintech, and the likes, many more. So just an important notice for you to please know that all these, all the Excel file, the Power BI file with all your transformations and everything will be posted in the description below for your access, for your utilization. Since the data is public, we too want to make our knowledge public, so you can access it in the description below very easily. And yeah, so that's revenue and expenses. Then the profitability and capital expenditure too. So net finance costs, net foreign exchange gain, or loss, EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, and the like. So operational metrics and key insights. So these two, like total mobile subscribers, active data users, smartphone penetration, data usage per user, there and many more different metrics. That so if you need the explainers for all this, you can obviously for all of them you can ask your AI, you can search online. They're very like general, you know, terminologies. The MTN data prices. So how did I get each of these? So the revenue and expenses and the profitability and capital expenditure were gotten from MTN's earnings release. As you can see, the years I'm dealing with are from 2021 to 2025. When you open up your browser, you simply have to go to search for this MTN.ng investors financial reporting. And what you're going to look for is the FY, that's the fiscal year 2025 earnings release. You're going to look for it for the 2021, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a way this can be automated using Easy Scraper. You can basically scrape the links and help you download it faster. But that's if you're dealing with many multiple years. For the 5 years, you can't just download. It's best you just download it, straight up on your own. So I mistakenly clicked it, but yeah. So basically, this I already have it downloaded, but you can click on it and it will automatically open up, then show you the option to download. But yeah, see it's here for all the years I worked with. So for 2025, if you want to look at 2025 specifically, you would notice that like because I was talking about this revenue and expenses and profitability and capex, that's capital expenditure. In all their earnings release, at least for the ones I checked, they have where they'll write down, some kind of the things that they're proud of, right? The things that that they call it salient points. So basically, everything I got for most things I got for the operational metrics plus key insights, right here, we are from this point. You can see active data users here, total subscribers here, and different things like that we're gotten from the salient points. There will now also be a table, right, where they also highlight all their, now their financial numbers, like their highlights. Basically, not necessarily highlights in terms of like the salient points, in terms of what they are proud of, but highlight in terms of these are the key things that I guess investors or general people just look into, right? Like expenses and revenue and profitability and the like. So looking into this aspect, total revenue 5.2, but going into the details, total service revenue 5.1742 for 2025, 3.3491 for 2024. Then going into the voice revenue 1.85 and the like. So yeah, I got all these for here from my revenue, expenses, and profitability and capex from these tables for the 2021 all through 2025 for their respective releases. So that's basically how I got all this. Then, if you want to go into the MTN's data prices 2026, simply go to your browser, search www.mtn.ng data plans, and yeah, all the plans here. Basically, I believe currently they haven't changed, but as at January 2026, as the Excel sheet says, that's what I got. All the information that's there, and obviously this was generated from that. I Through the help of I asked AI to kind of categorize it in this way for me, picking out the at least two categories out of each category and finding out the average per category, something like that. Yeah. Then that's how I got to this table. Okay, so getting into the Power Query, that's where all the initial, not initial, because initially the work was done with Excel, just light work, but all the transformations, actual transformations. First of all, you have to extract it and transform it. It's mainly in Power BI, so all the transformations were done here. And I want to just walk you through it because you have access to the file, you automatically have access to all the steps. I'm not here to redo the steps, I'm here to walk you through it. So starting from a key table basically in workflow, the revenue. So I first of all imported the data into Power BI and it looked like this, right? This was it originally. If you put your head into how the Excel file looked, very very similar, right? With the ABC column, then this, then plenty of nulls, many nulls, and yeah, it just looks similar, right? And so I had to begin by clearing the nulls, making the headers the right way, which I first of all promoted the headers, uh, you know, um, then obviously clearing the nulls and also making sure that each of the columns were at the right data type. Basically, that's what I did. Um, that's what all these steps on the right hand side signify, right? I replaced the values. That was when I replaced the 9M because it was no longer 9M. It was for the full 2025, and I didn't want to show 9M in any of the charts, basically. And so change type. That was the year to actually it was ABC before. You can see now it's looking like 123. Many more changes. If you want to learn about Power BI transformations, right? How to really, really transform your data in depthly, not really in depthly, but as a beginner, if you just really want to know what all this is about, we have a course covering it, so you can look into it. I believe it will be up there. If it's not up there, just check our Power BI playlist. Then, if you go down, we basically did all that, and obviously, the revenue, if where we collected data from, just to go back quickly, you see that it's writes in millions, right? So the numbers here aren't final. You have to you have to catch that. So obviously, in between you see multiplied column. So basically, I multiplied each of the millions column by 1 million to capture that factor. Then I filtered. I think the last step I did was actually finally to filter all the rows. That was the same approach I used for the profitability and the operations. I believe for the profitability now had more of percentage. The profitability had more of percentages, right? So I had to change to, let's just start from the source, right? Then this basically how it looked originally. Promoted headers, ensure they were all on the right type. Then um yeah, changed it to 1.2 here means decimal number, right? So I had to change it to a decimal number because it's already in percentage, right? So I didn't want it to be like 0.53, for instance, the first row here. I wanted it to be its number, but then to signify at the top that it's a percentage. There's a reason why I did this. It will allow me to, there are different ways to approach it, but this way at least was just the way I thought about the time, right? Other places, I ensure that the millions were reflected in the actual, in the actual, like even here too, I ensure that the millions were reflected, but I didn't really touch any of the percentages. I didn't want the percentages to be actual percentages. If not, to work with it the way I work with percentages in my when it's time to create the charts, when it's time to create the dashboard, it would have thrown me off a bit, but still, it's fair. You can see that it's a percentage here, and yeah, so this means basically 53%. For a 0.53 for a non-technical audience, it would be a bit weird. So yeah, I felt. So fact operations, the same thing. Then for MTN entry level data prices, I basically just not much here. It was really pretty clean. I basically promoted the headers and changed all the types to their rights. All the first one should be text, basically text. This one should be um, fixed decimal number, fixed decimal number, fixed decimal number in Power BI is used to signify currency, best signify currency. Data prices, the same transformations were done. But I believe here there are more things. I've seen more situations. So I had to promote headers, obviously. Then I had to change the type, all of them. Yeah. Then uh, duplicated the column. Oh, I duplicated the column. I duplicated the bundle column, right? So you can see. Then I had to rename this to bundle for charting. Yeah, okay, specific. I believe I did this after when I had already started to work. I did this when I started to work with create the chart. I did this specifically to help me make a chart better, to help me curate my chart better. And exactly. So the idea of me duplicating this was to ensure I have one that had no 2M, 3M, 1Y. Obviously, signifying that the 90 gig was for a 2-month plan, 40 gig was for a 3-month plan, and the likes. So I just needed something that was plain and clean to use to make my chart. Very simple. Then this was made during my. This was made after I'd already cleaned the whole queries, the whole tables, and started the work. Then I saw the need to have something like this before I created. So this is basically just a mini table I created to enable me make one of the charts I wanted to display in the consumer dashboard, basically. And yeah, that's just that. It's just basically like this. And yeah, that's all the cleaning I did. As I said, all the details will be found on this particular file with all the in-depth cleaning and steps will be found in the description below. And also, if you want to learn about Power BI cleaning, we have a video on that. So that's it for the cleaning. Let's get into some advanced stuff. It's very important to look into the model. So first of all, just know that this wasn't any complex kind of model. That it's not complex at all. What I did with the operations, revenue, and profitability tables, they all had something in common. Yeah. So basically, I just linked one to one, one to one. I linked them together. Which here you can even see the relationship was 1 to 1 to fact revenue, then I also linked profitability to revenue, basically on year. As for the data prices modeling, I don't think there was no need for that. If I wanted to look into the entry level data prices, I will use the entry level metrics. Same thing for data price. Because if I wanted to create its own model, if I wanted to link them together or create a relationship, I would have to use a star schema model, which is a bit complex. We'll talk about the bus selector when we're looking into the charts, how we build the charts. Yeah, and that's basically it for the modeling. Very, very simple, nothing too complex. It's not really a database kind of job. It's just very straightforward based on the way the data was sourced and how small the scale of the analysis is. It's not really something that has to be complex. So after the data transformation, the next important step is to build the chart, right? But you don't just go into building the chart. You have to use your analytical mind to really look at what the numbers are saying and how the numbers in initially how you feel the numbers can answer the question. So our analysis has two sides: the consumer side of things and the corporate or company side of things. The consumer side of things, the center of it is actually um, data, basically, and the corporate side of things, the center of it is forex and the bounce back, the whole story for the corporate side of things. So for the consumer side of things, obviously this dashboard wasn't here when I was doing the analysis or doing my thinking. I was basically looking at the Excel file, basically. So you think, right? When we're talking about data and you want to analyze how we affect consumers, you start from the price of data, right? Price of data, which then leads to the revenue gotten, achieved by MTN from data, right? You can also go, if you want to go deeper, smartphone penetration. That's, in a sense, how what percent of people MTN has reached, right? That use mobile, phones, basically, in just in a basic sense. Then go. Okay, you can also actually consider, just thinking off the top of my head after smartphone penetration, off the top of my head, and actually based on a metric I saw when I was extracting the data traffic. This is very important because this is basically the amount of information and data that passes through MTN's servers or network at any given time. So the growth is also very important to look into when doing this kind of analysis. Other things are also very important. The broadband coverage, right? This is how much of Nigeria MTN masses has covered, basically. So things like that are what I felt will answer the consumer questions or consumer problems to an extent, right? Obviously, as you start, you see more, and as you discuss, you have discussions with your team, you have discussions with AI, you do more research, you find more important metrics that you can use to explain the problem in question. So then, looking at the corporate side of things, the same idea. When you're looking at forex, right? Because they had a loss that was based on forex, of naturally the metrics you want to look for are metrics that have to do with profitability, which EBITDA, earnings before income tax, depreciation and amortization. You look at net finance costs. You obviously look at the net, this is the main thing that we're trying to decipher. Then capital expenditure, how much spent on infrastructure year over year, and the just plain sense, the profit and loss, basically. These numbers will help us really look into what MTN was really going through that led to what really caused the huge losses that happened in 2023, 2024, and what really led to the bounce back, whether it was efficiency in their operations or simply just the recovery of the naira. Yeah, so I actually took notes after establishing the important columns that I felt would really answer the questions I had, or that really answer the project questions, rather. I had to take notes of the ones that will be at the top of my dashboard, right? I really needed to, that's what you have to do. You have to really understand, note down what you want to see at the top. What really is impactful things I have that, has to be at the top. And really, really directly answers the questions brought up by the project or the research you're doing. So the most important one was the price per GB spread. The difference between what a daily user pays and what a long-term user pays is not marginal. It is nearly 5 times. This is the story in itself, basically. So when I had that was basically with the file with the data prices table. When I found the average cost per GB, I told you that this table was generated with AI earlier. So if you notice, just off the top, as I said, what a daily user and what a long-term subscriber pays almost 5 times. So average cost per GB for a daily user is 652. Actually, cost per GB, to be honest, average cost per the whole category, that's what this is. So the cost per GB for this particular plan is 1K. If you go down to a someone that's paying, let's not even make it too complex. Let's leave it as let's not go too low. Let's leave it at monthly, maybe the 75 gig, 240. So 240, nearly more than 4 times, right? This. If you go as low as this to this lowest plan, you notice that it's way more than 5 times that if you're comparing the extremes. Obviously, it's skewed to compare the extremes, right? So there were other things that I considered. That's why in a chart you can show different categories, right? You don't just if you want to highlight one, you can highlight one. But I ended up showing a lot, showing delving deep basically into the numbers, not just showing the raw figures, right? Uh, Based on also this, if you compare the whole category for daily is 650 per GB. For weekly, that like it's for 2 days plan is cheaper. It's actually an outlier, but it's trying to be an outlier, but it's really not because the fact is, the entry price, the amount that you have to pay to even acquire or achieve the 2 day plan is 600. Weekly plan even goes lower than 2 day plan because you can even achieve a weekly plan or buy a weekly plan with 500 naira. But for a 2 day plan, you have to have at least 600 naira readily available at any point in time, which the lowest rung of Nigerians, let's be real, can't afford every 2 days. It's just not. That's how much. That's a lot. That's 600 naira times about 15 for a month. That is That's about 9K to be honest, and that is how much? Almost 10% or 15% of the minimum wage. So a lot of money, right? Considering the average Nigerian. So I'm just trying to let you in on my thought processes, right? I'm trying to let you in on my thought processes as to why I, showed some charts earlier than some other charts or made some things bold in some specific charts, right? Then the next thing I noted down was the usage growth, right? Plus 200% since 2021. Basically, usage growth, I believe, is uh, data usage, basically. So I say plus what? Plus what? 200% is 2021. So that's 4.5. That is almost times two. Plus 100% means it's tripled. That means it added to 4.5 times 2 is 9. So 9 plus 4.5 is about 13.5. So, you know, almost tripled if you compare 2021 to 2025, right? Almost tripled in volume. Data use a very important metric when you want to analyze the consumer side of things. And yeah, you can notice that there's a very like distinct rise in data usage. Simply, if you want to look into all of them holistically, there are many other methods you can even discuss. We can directly put everything into AI. AI is available. AI should not be underrated. Should be utilized to make your work flow faster. You can simply make a what they call a area charts, right? You can make what they call an area chart for all the metrics, and it will do that for you. Okay, I believe this confused it. So you can make what they call an area chart for, yeah, stacked area chart, and it will really show you, the flow. So basically, not everything increased based on the chart, apart from this green. Fintech users, let me look at, yeah, they don't not increase, they actually reduced because you can see that it went down a bit. But for this average active data users, a million increased just a little bit, just a little bit. Let's see, active data users just a little bit in the obviously. 1 million is not little, but in the scale, current scale, just a little bit. And total mobile subscribers also increased a little by the scale, but 7 million is a lot. So yeah, you can do this obviously to just get quick insights into your current data. And yeah, so basically I did that, and I had plenty of notes for the company side. I basically noted down the forex swing was from 925 billion to positive 90 billion was is basically the headline number. Then the traffic growing at 34%, broader than 11%. So basically for the forex, you can look at the profitability and capex table. The forex profitability and capex table, that's this. I just basically it was in the news, but see the numbers is different, right? Minus 740. I think this is thousand. It was a million. That's about um, billion. Then nine over 900 billion in losses again. Then immediately they got a a profit, although not as much as the loss, but a profit nonetheless, right? So this is the headline, right? Everything I'm doing in the company side of things is just to try to explain this. I also noticed something quickly about the traffic growing at 34%, broadband at 11%. So data traffic, the amount of data information that passes through MTN servers or network at any given time. So this is the growth, right? They give us the growth in their earnings release, and you can see that, yeah, although it's not increasing, there's growth nonetheless. And if you want to compare this with their broadband, like how much the 4G and 5G masses cover Nigeria, if you want to just compare it, have a direct comparison, this wasn't increasing at the same rate as that. Like if you want to even use specific years to compare this, you can go to your operational metrics and notice that, yeah, in 2023, there was a 44.9% growth in data traffic. That's the volume of information that people were passing through MTN servers, to and fro, upload, downloads, streaming, blah, blah, blah. And it increased by 44.9% from 2022 to 2023. Broadband coverage, on the other hand, only increased by that's about 2.4% increase. The percentage number just on its own, plain. Then, if you want to compare that in growth rate, there's like just like how data traffic growth rate is. I did that in my Power BI file, and I noticed that from 2023, it wasn't even up to, like, it was just simply 3%. That sheds light into the consumer's reality as to why data can be slow, they have data problems, data dissatisfaction. This is an important metric to look at because data traffic is growing at very, considerable rates, just looking at the numbers. But we want to compare it to the way the broadband coverage is growing or has been growing for the past years. It's as simple number. In 2024 was even as low as 1%. So that it just didn't match it. Just hasn't matched it yet. At least the growth rate. Then so basically you take notes. I took all these notes. I had all these thought processes. Then I simply started creating the chart, basically. So with my notes, I knew that I wanted to visualize the price per GB, the data usage. I wanted to also visualize smartphone penetration for the corporate side of things, forex, and also these numbers and other things that were supporting arguments. And yeah, it's time to really build a dashboard with you guys. So I'm going to first of all ungroup this because they are all grouped together. So let me just ungroup and show you guys bit by bit how this was done. This is a text. This was added by what? It's added by inserting text box, right? When you insert the text box, if you want it to be transparent, it's very, very simple. You go to effects and you switch off the background. That means that whatever you write inside here will be transparent. You can bold it and obviously increase the text. But you have to highlight the text you want to increase before it can reflect. Then bold, italics, whatever you want. That's basically how I made all the write-ups, or almost all the write-ups here. Then for the write-ups. Then for the values, right? This particular value was a measure, right? It was average price per GB. That means I solved for it. So you can see it over here. So basically, I wanted to see use- um, using the data revenue as a basis, right? Data revenue, that's how much MTN acquired from data. You could say 2025 any year, because last I filtered the card for 2025. So you could say 2025. So using the data revenue that MTN acquired at any given year, right, or in total for the 5 years I analyzed, I wanted to see, right, how much really out of that revenue did one person, the one of the subscribers, pay? How much of that revenue was gotten from one person, right? Basically, dividing data revenue by their number of users. Then I took it a step further to also see, now that we've gotten that value, now truly, not just using the price of data, the price of data plans. I use that value to then really look into how much are the users truly paying for a GB when it comes to MTN. How much? So how did I do it? Basically, utilizing data revenue and active data users. All values here were published by MTN in their earnings release. So I had the data revenue. Basically, I um, scaled it down to monthly. Now you ask, why did I scale it down to monthly? I basically divided it by two. That's how to scale it down. Annual data revenue for any given year to get it to monthly divided by 12, basically. So why did I do that? It's because of, now, if I want to see how much um, users paid per month, I obviously had to dig deep into what MTN's numbers were talking about. Then I found they have a column or a metric called data usage per user, and it was in the unit GB per month, gig per month. So that I found that interesting. That was the key to my problem. If they have a metric already, data usage per user, that means how much gig a user uses per month. And I believe for 2025 it was around 13.1 or so. Exactly. So if I have that metric or that number, and I also have the number for data revenue. Basically, if I wanted to relate the data usage per user, which was in GB per month, if I wanted to relate it to my data revenue, the data revenue, either one of the two has to happen. Either data revenue scales down to monthly, or the data usage per user that was already in GB per month scales up to GB per year. So I basically just thought that I scaled down the data revenue, basically annual, down to monthly. And obviously, another interesting value that basically helped me um, combine everything was active data users. That's active data users. That's how many users or MTN had, how many data users MTN had at any given time throughout whatever year was in question. Let's just say 2025. And so basically, I made my data revenue into months. That's monthly revenue here. Then I divided that monthly revenue by average users to get monthly revenue per user. That's MTN, how much revenue MTN gets per month from one of its users, right? Then the last step was basically to divide this value by the GB per month. If I've gotten the monthly revenue per user, the next thing is just simply to divide it by the data usage per user. And what will I get? How much a data user of MTN pays for a GB per month. And that's all about this measure. And basically for 2025, how is it 2025? Because I filtered it to 2025. And how would you know it's 2025? Uh, Basically, you can also put your cursor over here. You will see the value. You can also see the values of every other year here. And yeah, for 2025, the value was 332.65 naira. Comparing it to the other years, it's fairly increased. 2021 was actually high, then it dropped down a bit. So although there was actually 2025 was when MTN reviewed and increased their prices early 2025. So this was actually expected, right? This was actually an expected change. So basically, yeah, that is that. So and I showed you guys how I built the how I built the header, how I built the card, and all these steps are the same for this four. So just pay attention. How I built the card was Basically, you come to you go out of everything, right? Then you click on your card. Yeah, this kind of card. Then I basically selected the data that I wanted to work with. And then I filtered it for 2025, the year I wanted to show. By doing what you can see, what I selected was here. So basically, you have to now input the year and and filter it, basic filtering to 2025, and to show you the value. Then what did I just do? Control Z. Yeah, 2025. Sorry. Then um that was basically it. I knew I wanted to use text box to write the headers, so I basically just did away with the write up that you can see over there. I think that was the call out. That was just the call out. So I switched off the call out, the no, the label, and then I had to make it transparent. How did I make it transparent? You go to the cards, switch off the border, switch off the divider, switch off the background. Then you go to general effects and also switch off the background. Then yeah, so you go to multi-card layout and basically switch off this background, and now the value will be on its own. Then you cannot really make it bold and big by going to call out basically, and you can make it bold, can increase the fonts. I believe you can make it bold. In my eye, that's not bold. Is it my eye? Probably the font I selected. Yeah, you can select the bold font. Then transparency, you can play with it. Basically, this is just what I did, and I made it black. I changed the color also to make it black. That's basically what I did for the card. For all the cards you can see. So that's it for all the cards and all the titles. So as for the column charts, what is actually called? Um, Also very, very straightforward, to be honest with you. You basically click on the kind of charts that you want. Obviously, I want a column chart. And what did I visualize? Revenue per GB and year. Simply click on year, click on revenue per GB. Sorry, same thing. Revenue per GB. So this was basically the metric. Then, how do you edit it to look that way? It's fairly straightforward. You go to the columns, you go to space between categories, I believe, and increase the space between categories. Yeah, you increase this. I think I maximized it. I think, yeah, you have to maximize it. Then, make it a little bit smaller. You notice some of the years don't show. That I found that's an issue. If I minimize it, some of the years they not show. So you have to switch something up. I think it's the please just switch off the responsiveness. Just responsive, regardless. But yeah, okay. It will not. If it's too small, it will not show. To be honest, if it's too small, it will not show. You have to give it enough space. I didn't see the need for any title at this point, so I switched off the title. Then that's the y-axis. Sorry, y-axis. I switched off the title also. Then I made it transparent. How did I make it transparent? First of all, you switch off the effects. Yeah, and that basically does it. But you notice that it has in the grid lines. There's this grid line. I don't want this grid line to be there. So you go to your visual section, grid lines, and you switch off the vertical one. Then how did I change the color? The next thing is to change the color basically. Change the color and make the X and Y axis bold. How did I make the X and Y axis bold? Click on X axis, go to values, make it bold. How did I make the Y axis bold? Sorry, the X axis bold. Values, make it bold. And obviously, you should also make it black. Just make it rhyme with mine if you're looking to make something similar. Then X axis, make it black. Yeah. So how did I change the color of each individual section? Basically, the colors. I don't know if I wrote that down. The color yellow. Yeah, exactly. The yellow was this. So the, you can screenshot this. The yellow. So you can basically just go to the columns section. Go to the column section. Column section. Then you can click. So 2021 itself. I want it to be gray. Only 2025 will be yellow. So I'm going to go to 2025 to the colors, more colors, then paste this code. Yeah, straight up. Then every other thing will be gray. So that means from 2021 individually, you have to do it individually. I know it take little time, but yeah, it's not the worst thing that can happen. Then you can change each of the years to the same color. That's basically how I achieved all the bar charts that you can see underneath or underneath all the cards. The same method for all of them. The same method for all of them basically. Um, and yeah, that's basically it. So it's not hard. And you can also notice this gray stuff at the back. It was basically a shape. From Power BI itself, you can actually add shapes, insert shapes, yeah. So yeah, I started a rectangle shape and made it that color. How? So I'm here to show you everything I did, most of the things I did, to be honest. Um, you go to effects. I know you switch off the effects, right? I think it's style, yeah. Fill, color, transparency. So that's basically it. When you switch, the background is already off automatically. You pick the right color you want, whatever color you want. Then you make it transparent a bit, just a bit. Then that's basically it. Then you switch. I think you have to switch off the border. No border. No need for a border. Then I put that behind the card, the title, and the bar charts that I just showed you how to curate. When you're done with that, what I did was you select each of them. Sorry, let me zoom in a bit. So you select this. I'm holding a control button, by the way. Control, select revenue, select the card, select the bar chart, and select the back. Then you group them. You group them. Grouping them means that now they are one. Right now they are one. Um, you can move them together. Basically, that's just what that means. Grouping them into one. So you don't have to think about that again. So street price per GB basically was basically me comparing the plans. So I selected, you know, plans from different categories, different ranges. This is the yearly plan. Selected data bundles, including smallest and biggest bundles. So I just selected a few. That's for my bar chart. I selected a few. If you go to my filters, you can see where I just selected, some for the high range, for the low range, and for the mid range. 10 gig is the mid range, and for this particular card was the lowest, was the 75 MB plan, which is basically 1,000 naira per GB because 75 MB is for 75 naira, and if you just do the mathematics, basically 1 MB for 1 naira. 1,000 MB makes 1 gig, so 1,000 MB for you know 1,000 naira for 1,000 MB, which is 1,000 naira for 1 gig. So basically, I already had the table cost per GB in my, if you check my Excel file, I already had the table cost per GB. So yeah, that particular thing was gotten from there. Then average GB used per month. It's basically in the data usage per month um, metric or column. If you check it, where I got the value from was data usage per user. It was already an established metric by MTN. Then I made a bar chart for it with the title. Active data users was already an established metric by MTN, and I made a bar chart for it. The same way I explained earlier. So, needless to say, this background, the file will be also attached in the description below. Um, Graphics. So you can see here, it's a interestingly enough, the background was gotten from AI, right? The background was gotten from AI. I'm going to talk about AI's help and assistance more towards the end. So for this background, yeah, is there, and yeah, that's just how I got the background. Then how do you impute the background? Interesting question that people will ask. Basically, click on the background or click on nothing, right? Then go to this. This is format your report page. To go to canvas background, then basically add it. As you can see, ChatGPT images. There's an image that I got from ChatGPT. You select the image and make it stretch, and it will look exactly how it looks on mine. This too was a graphic. This line was a graphic. Uh, was here. Long line, short line. The long line was a graphic. It's basically you just basically just put it there. That's basically a graphic. How do you insert graphics? Insert. Then you click on image, right? Then when you click on this, you go to style, I believe. Then image. Then you can now upload the image you want to insert. Upload the image and select it. Then basically that's an image. It's already in PNG, so the background is already transparent. Yeah, that's basically how. Then the font I use for the title, Segio UI, semi bold. For the subtitle, Segio bold. Then basically I continuously utilize Segoi. What I Sorry if I'm butchering the name for the name. Yeah. Then I that's it for the top section. So it's good that we're done with the top section. How I built it up. Then for these three sections, right, this line here, basically just to clear that out, was got from a graphic section for the graphics, the short line, which will be included in the description below in the drive. So the short line, I believe, was what I used for all of them, just to add a kind of um, effect to it. So this inequality gap price, that's the chart I utilized, I used to show the difference. That this is my first note, right? To show the difference um, between what the daily user pays and the long-term user pays. So I just selected the lowest plan. I didn't even select, and I think almost the highest plan, because I don't think it was the highest plan. Was this the highest plan in terms of GB? Like just in terms of plain GB, long term. Okay, yeah, that was the highest plan. So the lowest plan versus the highest plan, and in the middle, you will see something average price per GB. That's this value here. So this chart is basically comparing the price per GB of the top plan in terms of GB, the least plan in terms of GB, and versus what MTN is truly getting per GB. How did I do it? It's a bar chart, but it's an interesting bar chart. If you can notice, the average price per GB is separate. It's not in the same table as the prices of MTN data prices. Basically, it's not in the same table. If I want to create it normally, so you look for where the bar or column chart is, then you find where the data price is, MTN data price is located. Then you select the bundle, show the bundle, then the cost, show the cost, right, per GB. And now, obviously, to show the 75 and 800 MB is fair, you simply just go to your bundle, go to basic filtering, and select 75 and 800 MB, 800 GB, excuse me. So this and this. But then how do I now include the average price per GB? You would think because it's a measure, I can just come and maybe probably put it here. But then this was a serious problem. Like there was no way I could find to do it in a simple manner. Like so after a bit of research and discussions with I came to a conclusion, right? This looks easy. This chart looks very basic, but it was a bit complex to do, a bit tasking to do. So I utilize a selector. So I'm just going to explain how I achieved that so you will get an idea. You actually have to enter data, you have to create a selector, then DAX will do the rest. So you have to create a table with the metrics, which afterwards you use DAX to relate the metrics to its actual values. So now I'm going to then load it up. So you can name the table selector for your bar chart. You can call it the bar selector, right? What you then do is simply it will appear underneath here also. Yes, here. No? Yeah, bar selector 2. So what you then do basically is you open it up and you create a new measure inside the bar selector. Now, what would the measure? How did the measure build up? Not to waste your time, as it's already here. See the idea. So the switch and selected value with this highlighted, the selector that we created just now, and the specific table that we created just now. What it helps us to do is give actual values to the write-ups, basically, to the write-ups in the selector table. Now, after all this, it's very, very straightforward. You write the same way you wrote down the three different 75 MB average cost and 800 GB. However, you wrote down yours. You write down the exact way that you wrote it down, 75 MB bundle. Then now the calculate function that helps to filter expressions, essentially. So the expression here is basically data prices, like basically the cost per GB. We're looking for the cost per GB of the 75 MB bundle. So they calculate the first thing that you highlight. These marks can be sum, it can be mean, it can be whatever, right? It can be actually whatever based on the 75 MB. There's only one 75 MB bundle, but just put marks there. And yeah, you're going to put marks MTN data price cost per GB. Then you're going to tell the calculate function, because calculate function needs what? An expression, then a filter. You're going to tell the calculate function that after it has, understood or really considered the cost per GB column, filter down to where the bundle says, or where the bundle is equal to 75 MB. So what this has essentially done, it has kind of switched uh, based on the formula that ultimately the formula that we are using, but you can see returns different results depending on the value of an expression. So it has kind of like given the 75 MB in the selector table a value of the actual 75 MB in the data prices table. The same idea goes to the 800 GB bundle table. Now I'm using the charting table. Why? Because in the actual table, 800 GB had one Y. I don't want this 1 year to show. That's why. So I created a different table in Power BI without all those 1Y, all those 6M for 6 months, 3M. Yeah, I just created a different table. Straight up for the average price per GB is a measure. So you just write it out the way it is. Then don't forget, the most important thing is to identify the selector that you just created and the column that you just named. So what it simply means is that if I click on the bar, right, the bar that I have just clicked on, right, if I want to create this whole process, I just simply click on the measure that we just created now, which is this, right? Then I click on the bar, which is what the measure references, kind of, and I have this. Then it's already in the right format. If you want it to maybe show something before, okay, first of all, I forgot to include here. This is the bar selector. It has average. Where's the average price per GB located here? So I believe it will have a relationship. 75 MB is ready for 2025. 800 GB is ready for 2025. So if I'm picking this filter from the place that average price per GB is located, I believe average price per GB is what will change to just 2025 values. And yeah, it's going to sort accordingly. Forget about the sort I incorporated. The concept itself follows a descending structure. So that's why it just automatically follows the descending structure. So that's fine. How did I edit it? It was the same way as I edited this chart above, just the exact same way. Nothing different, but I'm just going to show. So first of all, I cleared out the background. You clear the background, go to effects, you clear out the background completely. Then you ensure that grid lines show, but just the horizontal grid lines show. Yeah, I believe they are showing. Are they showing? Yeah, there's no vertical showing currently. Yeah, basically, switch off the vertical and I don't know. I want you guys to really understand what I'm doing. Don't believe the background is good, but still, should I just hide it for now? Can I hide it? This other stuff? Give me a minute. Let me see if I can just hide it. So yeah, then I basically, you know how I created the headers already? It was a text box. I copied and pasted the text box. But for here, I believe that titles, the title is, let's check. I have to remove the title in case any title is there. I don't do anything with Y and X axis titles. I didn't do anything with the title, so I'm going to just switch it off just in case, so the space won't obstruct me. I'm going to change the color for the Y and X axis to white. Right, then make them a bit bold. Select the bold one, then make them bigger. Right, and see it's coming together. It's coming together. For the values of the x-axis, same thing. Make it white, make it bold. Select the same font size. You want it to be the same, so they will have a form of unison. Then unison, so they will look the same. You want them to just be the same, basically. And yeah, coming together. Then what one thing that's important is for this, because of the numbers were really the selling point, was data labels. Switch on data labels. Then what kind of data labels did I want to show? I wanted to show position should be over, but automatically it's already showing over. Uh, uh, Data label is already showing the values, I believe, but let's see it. I can't see it as of now. White. Yeah, so I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to increase the font size more than the other ones. Then what I'm going to, so yeah, that's basically what I want to do. So you're now going to wonder, yeah, okay, now for the data labels, what did I do differently to make it yellow, white, and blue? So first of all, I'm going to go to the individual columns. So I have their color codes here, the yellow. I'm just going to copy it again. I'm just going to copy it again. Come here. Okay, it's already here in my selection. Okay, so yeah, I can make everything yellow. Then I can go particularly to the average GB price, make it some sort of gray, and make it. I think it's a bit transparent, is it? Yeah, it's a bit transparent. Make it a bit transparent. Nothing too crazy. Then for the text itself, you go back to your data labels, value, close to where the color is. You go to FX. What you do is you select rules. Simply, a value equal to, yeah, you can say, since there's no decimal point for the 1000, value equal to 1000 number, then what? Then I want it to be yellow. That's the code that I copied. Then you add another rule. If value equal to, or you can say if value greater than 300, then I equal to 300, whatever. Just let it cover the 332.65. You can say value greater than 300 number and less than maybe 340 number. Then yeah, white. You can add the last rule. Last rule is for 150 something. So you can now say value greater than or equal to like 150, less than obviously, so 160. Then the header is just a text box that you paste at the top in a format that you choose. That's how I achieved this. You can see the same, no problem. If you want to round it up, very, very straightforward. You just write 0 decimal places and it will do the same thing. So that's very straightforward, I believe. Let us open up the other things that we hit. Um, this is its own bar chart. I don't believe I need to explain this again because there's no complexity in creating this bar chart. It's simply just going to the MTN data prices table, selecting the category and cost per GB, then coloring it the way that I've shown you twice now. Straightforward. When it now comes finally to this
explanation section. The idea is to summarize all the findings of the dashboard, summarize all the findings into important sections. How do you color some of the sections? You select it, then you choose a different color from here. I want to make this one blue. See, it's now blue, but blue is not good. Control Z to go back. Control Z to go back to what it was before. And yeah, so for the last two, so these were all just basically, this is all a write-up. Open up your text box, select the text box from home, text box, then write up and go away. And like right away basically. Therefore, this chart was another important chart. Interesting to be honest. So if you notice, smartphone penetration was actually its own inside the fact operations table. Inside operations table, you see that it was a metric on its own. So why did I curate a different measure? You'll see why now. So I imagine here you have a donut chart from scratch, right? And you use smartphone penetration the way it is there. You know what you're dealing with is 2025, basic filtering, and you enter 2025. It's a metric on its own. So basically, it will full the whole donut chart. Even if you want to use a pie chart, the same idea. What I did was basically found something to put it against, basically. So instead of it to just be alone, I made a measure, use maybe a sum, right, to summarize the smartphone penetration for smartphone penetration. What I'm going to do is 100 minus this. Probably, okay, I can do 100% minus fact operations, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if that works. Yeah, so the slight issue it was the error that appeared simply because of the percentage, right? So the percentage, if it's set right, then I won't. It will just act. There won't be any error. The charts will remain the same, like the chart I built this upon. You understand? The first time when there was a slight error with the percentage situation, it it broke it, right? But now that I fixed it up, it's all fixed up, as in like this now. Yeah, it works. It's fine. This is good. So you just simply, as I said, I needed a means of um, showing two different things, so I can really highlight the 66%, or that really tells the story of the smartphone penetration. So therefore, okay, let's put yeah. So basically, this is 66. One signifies the actual smartphone penetration, while the other is just minus 100, obviously. And yeah, that did it for me. So switch off the title. Then as for this one, 39 points, just this one, I want to really make it to have zero, like no decimal points. Zero, then oh yeah, it already worked. Zero, so you can see. Then I'm going to enter my visual, go to detail labels. Did I switch it off? Yeah, basically just switch this off. Then this does everything. Switch the legend off. Then the next thing is to just ensure the colors are right. The colors are right. So for the sum of benefit, which is the main one, the color should be this. Then for the other one, the color should be this, with a little bit of transparency, I believe. The same transparency I think I use for all the charts in this page, or the gray colored um, sections of the charts in this page. Then yeah, basically I just mm, then switched off the background. After I switched off the background, it was pretty straightforward from here. I simply used a card to identify the 66%. So just to do it again, I think I used the basic kind of card. Okay, I used the advanced one. So basically, you click anywhere outside, click on this, then click on smartphone penetration. Uh, then try to get the one for 2025. And it will show you 66.1. Then obviously the idea is to now clear, obviously I'll clear the background, but I want to also clear the label. Then obviously the background, so I'm just looking for card border divider background. All this should be switched off. Then even at the multi-card layouts, background should be switched off. In the general, under effects, background should be switched off. And yeah, basically I can now make it bold to my liking. Call out value, just choose the bold font, then probably increase it to the one I like, to the font size I like, then make it white. That's basically how I achieve this. Then to make it into percentages, you can just click here and make it into percentage. But now there comes a little problem. If you want to make something into percentage, it will actually multiply whatever value was there by 100. So I'm sure you've already noticed the smartphone penetration that has a card prefix, basically, or suffix at the ending. So basically, what is that? If I enter my transform data section under operations, card was curated. To be honest, the card visualization was I believe this is where I duplicated exactly, it was curated here. So I duplicated the smartphone penetration table, then I renamed it, I think, to card. Yes, exactly. Then I divided it by 100. How did I divide it? You just right click, or you click on it, then I believe there's a transform section. Right, there's a transform section already where you can simply just go to the standard and do divide. Right, you can divide and it will just divide for you. Right, that's basically what I did. So I was on a step already. That's what they asked me to insert step. But if I click on the last step and I do it, all I need to input is the number I want to divide, and you can just put 100 and OK, and it will divide it for me. That's basically what I did over here. If I click on the settings, you see, and it will divide for you, and yeah, you can work with that. So that basically just means that when you then transform the card to a decimal at the ending of all these processes that I showed you, it will not show in hundreds, right? It will show the actual 66.1, not 6K. Then I basically grouped it together. This was basically a text box that I wrote smartphone penetration and put it also underneath the number. Then I grouped everything together when I was done. So yeah, for sure you can ask your questions in the comment section below and everything will be clarified with Godspeed. So yeah, that's basically it for the consumer side of things. I'm going to quickly enter the company or corporate side of things right away. So the tables here at 1, 2, 3, the same way I made the ones in the consumer side was the same exact same way I made these three, right? So total revenue was basically an already existing metric. It was basically an already existing metric in the fact revenue table already. Data revenue, forex position 2 was basically an existing metric in the profitability section. Data revenue contribution, and now this I don't think it was already existing. It was a measure. I will explain. The capex intensity, that's capital expenditure intensity, was already existing in the profitability, just basically just the capex. Then all this were made from them. So the same, it's just the same process I utilized earlier in the consumer side of things. So how did I get the data revenue? I also explained that this chart is unique. I also explain how I curated that. So how did I achieve the data revenue contribution? So as you can see, it was I divided data revenue by total revenue, basically. So I just wanted to see the contribution or the factor as to which data contributed to the total revenue of MTN. In short, how much revenue can be attributed to data in percentages. And yeah, it was basically 53.78 as of the year 2025, which was last year. So that was how I achieved that particular important metric there. Then, this doesn't look like a typical bar chart. So utilizing that either this or this doesn't matter because we're just looking for singles. What was utilized in this chart, if I click on it, was year and net foreign exchange, I believe gain slash loss here. So basically the same thing, right? In the chart I'm building up, year and net foreign exchange. So you can see it's looking very similar. So if I'm going to the same process I used early on to make this chart or this bar chart, go to my columns, go to the layout, and basically increase the space between the categories and come here. Just make it smaller. No matter the gain you're trying to showcase, right? You should not mess with your scale. You shouldn't mess with your scale. So I'm just going to leave this auto and leave this auto. Let it do what it wants to do. Let it show true values, like true scaling. And yeah, that's basically the true scale. And I'm going to leave it like that. How did I choose how did I change the colors? You already know how I change the colors. Earlier on, I showed you how to make all the bar charts, most of the bar charts, the card visualizations. But just to show you the red, because I believe this was the red I used. Again, you can screenshot that if you want. You can make all categories this red. Basically, then change. Okay, it's not the exact red, but similar. Then change 2025 to the yellow. The other steps follow. Removing the background, removing all the axis titles, making the axis labels bold, yada yada yada, and you have this chart successfully. So that's basically how I built that chart. So this chart was another interesting chart, to be very honest with you. It used an interesting table, right? I wanted to just show the volume of the transformation made in just a single year, right? From 2024 to 2025. I wanted to just show the volume, which is this. And if you try to showcase that using, just anything, like this is the net forex gain loss, this is the year. If you try to just put these two things together, every other year apart from 4 and 5. Honestly, on its own, I didn't find a way to really just show that clear transformation, because the idea is the 2024 loss should be actually this big, right? This was the loss, then this was the gain, the positive that happened in 2025, then this was now the difference between this and this. Yeah, so this had the loss, which was over 900 trillion, had the difference, then had the gain, right? The nature of it was, this was basically what I visualized in my head. But if you try to do it on its own like this, to get that combination will be difficult, because yeah, you can turn the year how you like, but there are ways of sorting the columns. You can turn the years how you like, but you can't really tamper with the total, to the best of my knowledge, right? The way I figured I could do it was by creating a bridge table. So what do I mean? Okay, I'll just leave that there. This is the table I created for this chart. This table here. What's the table talking about? It's basically going to create a table, right? It's going to create a table that has two key values: the forex value for 2024, right? The last loss, the forex value actually for 2025 also, then the difference between 2024 and 2025. So using the variable method VAR, start value 2024 value, end value 2025 value, bridge value, difference between end and start. Then what I want, this was just solving, this was just like solving, back end solving. Then what I want to return, the table I really want this to tend to showcase, the table I really want this to showcase, right? Which is this table I want to showcase. Okay, we can even visualize it here. Was as you can see, row category. That means the first header should be a category, right? Show 2024 crisis for the first row. basically. Then the second header should be value, show the start value, that's 2024 value, sort order 1. That means if you're sorting it, 2024 should come first, which is what we would do by default either ways. Then the second case was the category, which is the same category column. Operational turnaround should be the value, the second row. The virtual value should then be the bridge, should then be the difference between the end value and the start value. And in my chart, I don't need to select, I don't need to confuse myself. All I need to do is select, put my category in category here as is there, put my values in the y-axis, and it will do the whole thing for me. The total is automatically calculated as adding the everything together. And don't forget that this is already negative. So you can see that I did already. All I had to do was to change the colors of each bar, and same way that you can change your increase, change your decrease, and change the total. And obviously total, this header, this label is not what I wanted. So if you notice, this label was actually pasted here. I pasted it there. It wasn't there originally. That's just the truth. It wasn't there originally. What was there originally? It was the total. So I pasted it there. I collected a section of my background and pasted it here also. Don't know if you can notice. See it here. It moves. See it here. A lot is achievable. I believe in Power BI. So far, you can visualize the data combinations. You can, in your head, it can be done. Just need to know how to transform data in Power BI properly. So that was it for the Forex turnaround. Then for this revenue engine, so use an area chart to compare how showcase how data has surpassed voice as of recent times as revenue engine of MTN. So basically, data revenue, voice revenue, then simply. And all you do is edit the colors. How do you edit the colors? As I've always said before, and edit the colors through here. Once you change the color of one, the shade will change automatically. So you can you can change the color by making, if not blue, maybe I want this, and the shade will change automatically. So just pick the right colors. So obviously remove this title, remove the background. Then if you want your label to look exactly like mine, you find your legend. Sorry, that's the legend exactly like mine. You find your legend, and you make it sort of circle, make it a line, then you make it in the top center. That's basically where mine is. Easy work. And making it expenses title, just basically name this expenses straight up. All I did was to, as I said earlier, create a funnel chart, open it up, select expenses, select year, then and you can sort it maybe with the sum of expenses, then that will enable to look like this. Then simply just change the color of the 2025 2024. How? Important question. You go to colors, then you go to FX. You set a rule. It's your classwork, I guess, because we have done that earlier for one of the charts in the consumer side of things. So set FX and be like, anyone that is less than 2M should be gray, anyone that's higher than 2M should be yellow, and it will just do that for you. Then remove the background basically, and it will look exactly like mine. Bold it, ensure it's in the font of your choice. Yeah, and that's basically how I created that. This now is the last interesting one, also the last one of the dashboard section. So data traffic growth rate. I wanted to compare data traffic growth rate with broadband growth rate. That's data traffic growth rate was already identified or published as a growth rate in MTN's earnings release. So this is just showing how data traffic has grown over in percentages over the years. It has been growing every year for the past 4 years. Although the growth rate has reduced, but it has been growing nonetheless. Now, when you want to look at the broadband growth in comparison with data traffic growth, that's where it became interesting, because broadband growth in the data that we have was given as a percentage, but it wasn't given as a growth rate. It wasn't given as a growth rate, which is what we had to do. You can see, obviously, I like to use variables to clarify all the sections of my formula, basically. So the current value is broadband itself. That's the current value. And then the previous value, if you want to find the growth rate, is actually you have to lag back 1 year. So I used to calculate because the method I wanted to use incorporated a filter, a kind of using a kind of a filter method. And if you want to filter in DAX, let's just start with the calculate function. And obviously, what I want to lag is the broadband coverage, same thing. But then I included a filter, which I just lag it behind by 1 year. So this all allows that to happen regardless of whatever filter is activated. For this fact operations here equal to max fact operation minus 1, basically, is saying that in all iterations of this formula, right? In all iterations of formula, year should be seen as year minus 1. This can be max, this can be sum, this can be whatever. It's just max because that's what is generally used to make a column into a kind of working variable in DAX, right? Max is basically used, same way calculate is used to make an expression into a working variable in DAX. So if that makes sense to anybody, but max can be sum, can be min too. But basically, the fact that it's minus 1 and this comes first is saying that anywhere year comes up, it should be seen as the previous year, which will now enable us to understand that, okay, this sum fact of the broadband coverage essentially has been filtered in this variable, the previous value that will be filtered to lag by 1 year, regardless of whatever filter might be active from fact operations table or its related tables. Then you do the current value minus the previous value all over the previous value. That will get you a percentage growth rate. That's how you get the growth rate. Current minus previous over previous will get you the growth rate. And we achieved the growth rates. The growth rates for that just basically showed us some important information that we'll look into. The chart basically just saw us comparing the two growth rates. The broadband growth rate that we achieved by ourselves versus the already existing data traffic growth rates over the years. Based on the fact that we found the broadband growth rate by itself, that means 2021 has no value because it's our starting year. We can't get a growth rate for 2021 if it's the first year that we had. So essentially, I then had to just simply filter out with the basic method. I had to filter out select all except 2021, and I changed the color, changed the legend. The same way I explained, I activated the data labels so all the numbers can show, and I just basically gave it a title. That's all I did. Very straightforward. I obviously removed the background. Very self-explanatory, and I believe you guys are good to go. This was just a text that explains different sections of this particular dashboard in a very concise way. We'll look into the explanation on how to really understand the dashboard, in my opinion. For now, this is all I did to really build up this chart. Same background as the first one. So nothing really complex. When you say complex Power BI dashboard, all you have to do is take a deep breath and really look into the components, right, from the top to the bottom. I really brainstorm. If it were you, how will you go about building this? And yeah, I'm sure you'll come to it. So far it was built in Power BI, you can do it on your own through watching a few YouTube videos, few discussions with AI, a few screenshots to AI, and you get whatever you want to achieve, in my humble opinion. So last thing I want to show you guys is tooltip. So if I hover over here, you see an interesting tooltip. If I hover over here, you see an interesting tooltip. I've noticed that it's not here, and it's not here, and it's not also here. Let us then understand how we did that. So basically, tooltip. This is called a tooltip, essentially. How did I do it? If you go down here, you see tooltips, but that you can actually change what it shows. But if what it showed is already okay, don't need to change much. Tooltip activated already, then you can edit it. You can edit what is showing. In this case, I didn't change much. Only year and data usage per user was activated. So what I actually did was I changed the text. Yeah, I made it bold, the same color, this and that. Then the background was gray, I guess. I don't know. Was it gray? Was this? Yeah. Then the transparency was 15 for the background. So making that here, let me just do that for this section. So I believe this was yellow. Was it 10? The tooltip was the text 10. Yeah, bold. Okay. It was bold too. And this was white, kind of white, not really white. I think 10% darker or 5% darker. Then gray, then 15% for the background. And what that would do is transform this to how this was. Yeah, let me do that for this one. Yeah, and that is how I built the dashboard. If you have more interest into knowing some of the fundamentals, we have videos on that. Check our channel. We have different playlists. Yeah, and then if you want more things about data analytics and business intelligence, check out our channel. We're going to enter in the next stage. Last stage will be just explaining how to utilize the dashboard properly. That should be done in a different video. If this really helped you in any way, be sure to subscribe. And we'll see you in the next analysis. So, how do you interact with the dashboard? Well, I like to call it a dynamic snapshot, right? Because it's not actually a dashboard. It's not fundamentally a dashboard. A dashboard will have things like dedicated filter buttons and in most cases, some cases sidebars, right? That you can use and navigate, the different pages of the dashboard. But so essentially, this is not a typical dashboard. But how do you utilize the dashboard? So if if you're here, you really want to just know how to what the MTN's numbers are talking about, right? Either for you're a data analyst or just a business person. So if you want to just know the revenue per GB, that's how much revenue MTN gained because it's the consumer reality dashboard. Obviously, this is the first page, but the rest of the revenue per GB is how much revenue MTN gained per GB bought from one consumer, and obviously this is just for the different years. As 2025 is highlighted, that means that this particular specific number that is highlighted or that is written up here is for 2025, right? And if you want to know for the different years, because this is a 5-year analysis, can just hover over it and you see what the numbers are talking about. It's clickable, right? It's a clickable um, part of the chart, right? But to click it, the resultant effect is negligible. There's nothing really that's coming out of clicking it. So there's no need. So basically, the revenue per GB over the 5 years, but 2025 highlighted based on this is the 2025 study. Street price per GB is not the same case, right? I'll just go to the other two before I enter here. So the same idea, how the metric is shown across 5 years, is the same idea for the average GB used per month and the active data user. So average GB used per month is the average GB used per month for per consumer of MTN, right? So the figure highlighted is from 2025, and if you want to see for the other years, you can obviously hover across. Same thing for the active data users per year, just to hover across and look at it, right? You can make your own observations from that. So street price per GB highlighted specifically 2025, right? So it showed street price as the lowest, basically the least for the least data plan. What is the price per 1 GB? And for the 75 MB plan, it's 75 naira. So you can calculate it 75 for 75, you know, 1 naira per MB. And just, yeah, get that. So, and I just basically selected, as you can see, my tooltip says selected data bundles, including smallest and biggest bundles, and the cost per GB for, I just selected, two from the least, two from the most, and one in the middle. That's a 10 GB to compare all their prices per GB. And, it shows a very distinct dip, but that was explained earlier on. Right, inequality gap by price was a selected plan, and the average price per GB. So just a comparison. If you want to really look into the details, apart from what you're seeing here, you can also hover over. You basically see what you're seeing in this particular chart. Same thing goes here. If you hover over, all you see is already here. It's just comparing the different
average prices by category for selected plans. Not selected plans, but uh, sel- selected categories, right? Or essentially all the categories that MTN has to offer, actually. Then, yeah, this is just the figure for smartphone penetration for 2025 alone, right? Not 2020. There was no flow from 2021, just based on the analysis, right? Even the explanation focused on 2025, like it was direction that the snapshot was trying to go to, right? Yeah, that's basically how to observe the values, right? That we really try to showcase in a hierarchical manner. If you understand what I'm saying, if you get my point, right? Then going to the company side of things, similar approach for the revenue, total revenue gotten by MTN. You can see this is basically uh, the different amounts over the years. If you want to see it over and you see it. So I can see that 2021 MTN got about 1.6 trillion. Right, it has increased in 2025, which is the highlighted value, which is the one above here, has increased by over 3 point something million. Right, MTN has essentially improved their revenue, and obviously for the first position, you can see this was a loss. It should be in brackets, right, or in negative, yeah, then a minus, negative 2025. They got a little gain plus 90 billion. This is a plus. This is for 2025. The other years were big losses. Revenue contribution, same thing, over capex intensity, the same thing. Forex turnaround, that's 2024 was a loss, then 2025 was a gain. So this is just the what caused the gain, right? The operational turnaround, uh, and whatever caused the gain, this value shows it, and you can see the sum of it. You can see what the magnitude of it. In other words, right? The revenue engine, the um, basically data revenue surpassed voice revenue around 2023, 2024, and this chart shows that. So if you want to see the individual numbers of data revenue and voice revenue that MTN, accrued or got in different years, over, and you see it. Same thing goes for expenses. And the congestion answer, data traffic growth, and broadband growth, right? This was basically how you can see the analysis here. Traffic outpaced infrastructure, right? Data traffic growth was in yellow. It grew. This was in yeah, it's a growth rate, right? So even if it's you can see that the chart is going down, it still grew, right? So how do you understand this? You understand this by essentially understand reasoning it by magnitude. That's just how I it's in percentage by reasoning it in terms of magnitude. Like you can see that this 67, 45, 43, 34. It in order of magnitude, like there's still growth, right? To if you want to compare it directly to how the broadband growth is growing in the same growth rate, it is just incomparable. You can't compare it. It's basically in magnitude, it's incomparable. Like data traffic is undeniably outgrowing broadband growth. So, and how do you, if the numbers are showing by themselves, hovering number won't show you much else, right? Just show you if you want to know the real percentage, so the expanded percentages, but nothing else to show you. That's basically it about that. And if you want, essentially, if you want to know anything about the what we're trying to showcase in the interactive snapshots, read the summaries, right? Read the summaries. Everything was analyzed, then placed in a thoughtful, hierarchical um, manner from top to bottom in a way that will really, really like be aligned with the message we're trying to pass. Right? There are many other things in MTN's earnings in their publication, but these were just the ones that we wanted to showcase. So yeah, that's basically it, right? From if there's any metric that truly confuses you, when modern world of AI, ask your large language model, ask ChatGPT, search on Google, you'll get a very quick overview of different top and simple explanations. So that's basically how to utilize the dashboard. It's very straightforward, right? So